I'm Pasha, and today I want to talk about something that's very dear to my heart. And that is, I adore the Nintendo Wii. I know some people are divided on whether it's a good system or a bad one, but there's no doubt in my mind, it has by far one of my favorite game libraries of all time. I only had a snippet of experience with the actual console, and that experience wasn't necessarily all that great because it was the Wii Mini that I had, and that was terrible. But then in 2014, in anticipation of the release of Bayonetta 2, I got myself a Wii U, and that was when it all changed for me. The poor old Wii U was a commercial failure, and the size of its library suffered greatly because of that. In order for you to enjoy it to its fullest, you have to be into every single genre of the market, from platformers to sports games, and while I can't say I'm anything like that, I do fall into the category of people who are into more niche games, which the Wii U actually has a decent amount of. I became a Wii U owner over 3.5 years ago, and I never regretted buying one. Because I'm the kind of person who doesn't really value money all that much, despite being broke for like 100% of his life, I initially bought this system just to play Bayonetta 2. That was love from first sight. I stand by what I said in my Bayonetta 2 video, this is my favorite game of all time, and though it is admittedly very flawed, it's still the most fun I've had with a video game in my life. So even if it was the only thing I had to play in this system for the rest of my life, I'd be still more than happy with my purchase. But then I started digging into what the Wii U actually had to offer and discovering all sorts of great things. Among all of the games I got over the course of the last 3.5 years, I'd say at least 20 were games that I really liked. And yeah, even if we count the couple of games I haven't bought yet, that's not really a big number, is it? And that is when the Wii part comes in. Wii U is natively backward compatible with the Wii, which doesn't simply double the library of games available to you, it triples it. And though there are indeed a lot of games on it targeted at casual audiences, through the sheer amount of software available to you, it's very likely you'll find plenty of stuff to play. And when these two libraries come together on one platform, Wii U's confusing name suddenly starts to make sense. It's the ultimate Wii. Just think about it for a second, it plays all of your Wii games with no exception, and natively outputs them at Full HD, plus it also has a good stack of new 8th gen games for you to enjoy. It's the best Wii you could ever hope to get, and that is awesome! Now, in order to play your Wii games, you are required to have these, the Wii controllers. They're pretty difficult to come by these days, but they are crucial to your enjoyment of the system. They act as a paywall of sorts, and you need to get them to essentially unlock the entirety of what it has to offer. And in doing so, you'll be able to play so many great games. So let's finally talk about that. What's interesting about my position as a fan of these two consoles is that I'm rarely ever into Nintendo's first-party stuff. I do not like any of their platformers or Mario Kart or even Smash, and instead tend to take interest in their exclusive third and second-party games. A great example of that is Fatal Frame. The series became exclusive to Nintendo with the release of the 4th game on the Wii, but that one never made it outside of Japan. However, the next installment, the Wii edition of Fatal Frame 2, was localized in English in Europe, and that was the game that brought me into the series. It's my favorite horror game of all time. The story, the atmosphere, the gameplay are all just fantastic. I cannot recommend this game enough. I have a digital copy of it since it's available on the Wii U eShop. In 2015, we got Fatal Frame Maiden of Black Water, the 5th game in the series. It received a very sparse physical release here in the West, and I'm very happy I got my physical copy of it. It's a weird one, in the sense that it lacks in certain things that were present in previous games, but it also adds a bunch of new bells and whistles to the game's core and makes some changes here and there. I really like this one. The narrative structure raises questions, and the plot itself is not the best the series has seen, but it makes up for its shortcomings with its excellent gameplay and great atmosphere. Definitely an essential part of my collection. Bayonetta 1 and 2 are the best character action games ever created. For the longest time, Bayonetta 2 was among the best Wii U exclusives that everybody held in very high regards. Even the most crowded with first-party Nintendo games top 10 lists out there usually include this game in them somewhere. The same can't be said for Bayo 1 because Bayonetta 2, as full of weird gameplay changes as it is, has made its predecessor feel dated, mainly due to its more responsive and forgiving controls and also more aesthetically pleasing visuals.
Is that all you've got? Knock off!
Regardless of that, both of these games are equally great and frustrating, albeit in different areas, but Bayonetta 2 irritated me less, so I like this one better. So, I spent over 500 hours in it. This is the kind of game that I can always just pick up and play, no matter what mood I'm in, or whether I'm tired or sad or anything. It's the only game like that I know of. As for Bayonetta 1, I have it digitally. I've just finished my first pure platinum run of it on non-stop infinite climax as Bayo, and my overall playtime clocked at over 300 hours, making it my second most played game on Wii U. I don't think I need to go into any further detail on whether you should check this series out or not. Let's stick with Platinum Games here for a moment. They are one of the most prominent third-party developers on Nintendo systems. As a matter of fact, their very first game was exclusive to the Wii, and that is Mad World. This is a Sin City-style third-person brawler with an emphasis on over-the-top violence. It's not very deep or complex as an action game, but shoving a person into a roaring turbine and watching him getting chopped to tiniest bits is never gonna get old. It's oh so satisfying to just run around and discover all the different ways to obliterate your enemies. Complete with fantastic soundtrack, it's a sublime experience overall.
Please, only if you're down there. I mean, from up here, they're awesome.
And then there was also a Wii U game that they made prior to Bayonetta 2, and this game is infuriating. Many people love the Wonderful 101. It's definitely a hidden gem, and though I do think I like it, oh god, you need so much patience to get through it. It's over the top, it's full of quirky characters and interesting gameplay ideas, and it's also a mess, which makes it the ultimate Hideki Kame game. You'll either love it or hate it. But at the end of the day, nobody makes action games the way he does, so maybe give it a go. Next up, we have the fabled Xenoblade Chronicles series. The first game was on the Wii and the second one on Wii U, although that isn't a sequel. Once again, the first one I have digitally. It's a modern-day JRPG that isn't like anything on the market. It has a brilliant story, great characters, interesting combat. Many deem it to be the best JRPG of the 7th generation of consoles. Now its follow-up, Xenoblade X, isn't like that. It's more of a small-scale MMO, which naturally makes the story take a backseat. You have a gigantic, seamless open world in this game which you can explore with up to 3 friends. The story again isn't anything to write home about, but if you like exploration, this one has it in spades. Sticking with the JRPG theme here, the Wii was chock full of them. Xenoblade is one of the most well-known examples, but there's so much more. Here is the last story. Unfortunately, as of the time of this recording, I've played very little of it, but it was made by Hironobu Sakaguchi, the person who created Final Fantasies 1 through 10. If you're a passionate fan of the genre, you know it has no right to be bad. I'll return to it as soon as I can. Meanwhile, let's talk about Pandoras Tell. Despite its fantasy setting, it has a very strong personal story that revolves around being in a relationship where one is going through a great deal of suffering and puts you into the shoes of the other, the person who has to bear with that. It's definitely something that I never thought I'd connect with, but I love this game's story, and its atmosphere too. Its gameplay is based around exploration. You have enormous towers to scavenge for supplies that will help you on your quest, each with their own tricks and gimmicks, and on top of that there's all your typical JRPG stuff. A leveling system, different weapons, armor upgrades, crafting, and so on and so forth. I can't recommend it enough. Pick it up, it's 20 bucks on the eShop. Unless you want a cool black case and comes in physically that'll stick out in your collection, like Super Mario Maker does in mine. This was an unexpected surprise to me. It's a game where you're making your own Mario levels, and it's very addictive. I never thought I'd be so fond of creating something. I'm more into, destroying stuff, which you can do in this game too. Yeah, it's very fun to play around with all the different objects and see how they interact with one another, and then use that to create all sorts of cool gameplay situations. It kind of awoke a game developer in me. I could spend 4, 5, 6 hours on creating just one level because it's that engaging. And yeah, it might not be for everybody, but it's definitely one of my most played Wii U games. On the subject of unexpected discoveries, here is Tokyo Mirage Sessions. This is a JRPG by Atlus. For a long time it was known as the crossover between Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem, but in actuality it's completely separate from either of those things. It has its own story and characters, and you don't need to know about anything outside of it. It does have some Fire Emblem fan service sprinkled all over it, but it'll have absolutely zero impact on your enjoyment of the game if you have no interest in Fire Emblem, like me. This game is weird, in the sense that nothing in it except for one thing really appeals to me. I have nothing to say of its art style, its theming, or its even general vibe. It just doesn't do anything for me. But one thing that this game has that makes it all worth for me is its combat. This is the most fun you'll ever have with a turn-based battle system in your life. It doesn't get old. It's simplistic and easily accessible at the start of the game, but it keeps expanding and getting more fun and exciting throughout the entire experience. I spent 90 hours in it on my first playthrough and never got sick of it. And all those 90 hours were also accompanied by absolutely stellar soundtrack. If you love JRPGs, this is the one you'll regret skipping. And finally, of course, I have to mention Zelda. Wii U has, I believe, every major Zelda game, with 2 of them, The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, having been remastered in HD specifically for it. Everything else, from the original NES game to the Wii exclusive Skyward Sword, is downloadable from eShop. The Legend of Zelda is the kind of series that you have to experience in some capacity. Zelda games are all extremely well received and are one of Nintendo's most treasured franchises. And while you aren't guaranteed to fall in love with older, more classic entries in the series, they're old after all, you most likely will with its latest installment, Breath of the Wild. Oh, Breath of the Wild. This game conquered the hearts of virtually everyone. I probably don't even need to describe it. It's beautiful, it's full of charm and unique ideas. It's essentially a sandbox that doesn't have any walls in it. You can climb anything you want and go anywhere you want. You can just start it, get past the tutorial area, and let your wanderlust lead you wherever. It's so good. It's also probably one of the most realistic games I've ever played, aside from Link sticking to every surface like a Spider-Man. I guess the idea is that he like grabs onto little rocks and ledges that jut from the mountainside, but that doesn't work for actual brick walls. But yeah, this is definitely a must-have, even if, no, especially if you aren't a Zelda fan yet. And that's about all I've got here for now. My collection is still growing, there's a bunch of stuff to pick up and get to. There are way more Wii and Wii U games to talk about. Some of the more rare and unknown ones will get their own separate videos dedicated to them, eventually. In my opinion, this little baby right here is severely underrated. A lot of its notoriety, I feel, comes from people who just don't know what it actually has to offer. They dismiss it just the way they did it with the Wii, for no good reason. Sales numbers have apparently nothing to do with it. And that's just ignorant, I think. Which is why I wanted to make this video and talk about it for a minute. I wholeheartedly believe that this is a great system, and maybe you don't agree with that. Maybe you have little to no interest in the games I've talked about, but hopefully you can at the very least see where I'm coming from. Other than that, I want to thank you for spending some time with me here. I hope this has been in some shape or form helpful or informative. That would mean a lot to me. If you like this kind of content, I'll surely have more to offer in the future, so maybe keep me in your thoughts. Thank you again for watching, and goodbye.